Dig it. Slow drag with remedy. The English language has a wonderful defiance about it. It's always contracting and expanding. How did it come about? And for good and all, we're no match for the ungrammatical yet natural sounding how come and for good. Idiomatic pairs such as safe and sound and first and foremost, on the other hand, show no sign of uncoupling. And what happens when there's a word you thought you knew, but quite unexpectedly found out that it had a deeper meaning? It'd be like finding out your spouse has a couple of secret marriages they forgot to tell you about. And isn't the singular they the best rule break of them all? My name is Remedy, and this is an appreciation. This is an exploration of linguistics, of language, and obscure references, as framed by the peerless poetry of the modern-day master, Elvis Costello. Today's slow drag is with Bedlam from The Delivery Man, released in 2004. The songwriting is credited to Elvis Costello. Oh, strap in for this one. These lines are truly dense, inspired, ethereal, and eye-opening. They are the words to a hard-driving song that I've heard countless times, yet still had no idea how much depth there was right there in front of me. For all I've learned in researching this episode, there still remains an equal amount of mystery. I've got this phosphorescent portrait of gentle Jesus, meek and mild. I've got this harlot that I'm stuck with, carrying another man's child. The solitary star announcing vacancy burned out as we arrived. They'd throw us back across the border if they knew that we survived. What starts with a computer desktop photo of Jesus seems to turn into a modern-day telling of the nativity story. It's not blasphemy that way, I suppose. These 4 lines are exceptionally long and feature tidy ending rhymes, mild and child, arrived, survived, but the internal imagery and sounds create a cacophony of hissing and initial intrigue. The verse continues. And they were surprised to see us, so they greeted us with palms. They asked for ammunition, acts of contrition, and small alms. They were surprised. Boy, it's easy to insert a more comprehensible weren't surprised to see us. But if they were unexpected, as the line goes, then a safe guess is that the palms that they were greeted with were those of outstretched hands, waiting for what had been asked for, an unspecified form of ammunition, a rock, an arrow, a bullet, gossip, religious apologies, and an act of sharing the wealth. And I might recite a small prayer if I ever said them. I lay down on an iron frame and find myself in Bedlam. The metaphor of a frame and a bed jumps out clearly in this chorus. Note the word Bedlam, generally thought of as chaos, commotion, or even a bit of pandemonium, but that's just the beginning, or rather, that's just the evolution of the word and its meaning. First, the chorus is repeated 3 times in this piece. It starts and ends the same each time, yet there is a unique line or lines added to each section. Here is the unique line and the repeated last line of the first mention of the chorus. I wish I could take something for drowning out the noise. Wailing echoes down the corridor. The unusual syntax of taking something for rather than taking something to drown out the noise is enough to make you linger over the line enough to pay a little greater attention. And now there are 2 places in this episode where I will kindly ask the forgiveness of UK listeners and anyone in the know for what I've recently discovered. The first, Bethlehem, the site of the Nativity and the commonly agreed upon birthplace of Jesus, as mentioned in the first verse. That I knew. Bethlehem is also the name of the 13th century London Hospital for Paupers. Plagued with money and other issues from the very beginning, the Institute did not have the most stellar of reputation. The name soon shortened colloquially to Bedlam, which, thanks in part to the schwa, saw a change in pronunciation to Bedlam. Bedlam is known today as a mental institution. Given this definition of Bedlam, the wailing echoes down the corridor, comes into sharper focus, and is chilling. So in one verse and in one chorus, Mr. Costello has evoked the birth of Jesus and a London hospital that gave us a common word for an uproar. There is more religion and madness to come in this saga. I've got this imaginary radio and I'm punching up the dial. I've got the AC trained on the TV so it won't blow up in my eye. And everything I thought fanciful and mocked as too extreme must be the family entertainment here in the strange land of my dreams. Here we have another 4 long lines loaded with tremendous imagery. There's a nice balance between the rational and the irrational. Then the observation about what was thought to be too fanciful in a strange land of dreams calls back to the Bedlam Hospital, or at least that's one interpretation. And I'm practicing my likeness of St. Francis of Assisi, and if I hold my hand outstretched, a little bird comes to me. This is a beautiful image, to be sure, but it's also slightly sinister, or at least I hope it is. St. Francis of Assisi is the patron saint of animals and ecology, canonized in 1228. The current pope took his name after the white smoke rose in 2013. And I might recite a small prayer if I ever said them. I lay down on an iron frame and find myself in Bedlam. So again, here's the beginning of the second chorus, same as the first, just before it adds more texture. Escaping from the fingers that were stretching through the bars, wailing echoes down the corridors. Here is where the image of the Bedlam Hospital and all its abuses and outbursts once again takes over the narrative. The player piano picks out Life Goes On. The ringtone rang out Jerusalem into the pit of sadness where the wretched plunge. We've buried all the innocence, now we must bury revenge. Note that this is a verse, yet it's structured like a chorus. It's just brilliant. Now, from the band Poison to Tupac Shakur to The Damned, it seems everyone except for Elvis Costello himself has a song entitled Life Goes On. So I've chosen to focus on the Kinks' 1977 version as a possible reference for 2 reasons. The first 2 lines, quote, "A friend of mine just had a real bad time. You see, his life was shattered and he lost his mind," unquote, seems quite fitting for this subject matter. And I'm always up for mentioning the 1991 version of the Kinks' 1969 song, Days, for the Until the End of the World soundtrack. I know I'm biased, but I've yet to hear a song Elvis Costello has covered that isn't a superior product to even a very good original. The song Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood and the entire Almost Blue album springs to mind. Okay, now for Jerusalem. My apologies again for the second UK specific definition that I had no idea about. Jerusalem, the unofficial yet popular anthem, is a poem written by William Blake that has been set to music. It's described as strident and vivid and is said to be more familiar to the nation's athletes than God Save the Queen. One striking line stands out. And was Jerusalem built here among these dark satanic mills? Bringing it back to the verse itself, the word revenge, though reportedly fueled by it, is one of the few instances the word itself is used in any of Mr. Costello's songs. In fact, I'm coming up blank, so if you can name an Elvis Costello song with the word revenge in it, please let me know. Thank you. They've got this scared and decorated girl strapped to the steel trunk of a Mustang. They drove her down a cypress grove where traitors hang and stars still spangle. They dangled flags and other rags along the colored thread of twine. They dragged that bruised and purple heart along the road to Palestine. As with the first two verses, this verse sports four exceptionally long lines. The imagery once again overpowers any sort of end rhyme. A description of spangled stars connotes the American flag, yet the mention of a cypress grove conjures the southeastern part of the United States. It is possible, therefore, that the dangled flags and other rags represent the odious Confederate flag. That part of the world, and I say this as an American who's been there, is exactly the sort of place you might see any number of unusual items strapped to the trunk of a Mustang. Moreover, the use of the words traitors hang alongside colored thread is provocative at the very minimum. The line, "The Road to Palestine," brings us back to the first allusion to Bethlehem, where Jesus was born, also referred to as Highway 60, if I'm reading it correctly. The road leads to Nazareth. Jesus, as we know, is also known as Jesus of Nazareth. Someone went off muttering, mentioned 30 pieces. Easter saw us slaughtering, each wrapped in bloodstained fleeces. My thoughts returned to vengeance, but I put up no resistance. Though I seemed a long way from my home, it really was no distance. The mention of both the Nativity and Easter squares this circle nicely. Another lengthy four-line verse. I marvel at the consistency of the structure of verses and the liberties taken with the chorus. Pieces, fleeces, resistance, distance. The rhyme stayed true to the scheme and to the meaning, while creating a firestorm inside and in between the lines. And I might recite a small prayer, if I ever said them. I lay down on an iron frame and find myself in Bedlam. This is a familiar chorus that a lesser poet might be content to wrap an entire song around. Yet here's more value added. This time, instead of one line, there are three. Bowing like an actor, acknowledging applause, playing the Crusader who was conquering the Moors. When he knew the consequences, but he won't accept the cause, wailing echoes down the corridors. Applause, Moors, corridors, Crusader, consequences, cause, echoes. These words and rhymes are exceptional. The imagery is that of a Bedlam's resident, perhaps starring in their own production. Compared with the 343 words of Led Zeppelin's loquacious 8-minute song, Stairway to Heaven, Bedlam, at 4 minutes and 48 seconds, has 403 words, and while some are repeated in the chorus, there are 60 more words belted out in 2 fewer minutes. Oh, it's just staggering. Bedlam is a highly skilled tangle of biblical and English history, of mad and irrational imagery. It's a sheer symphony of linguistic prowess and poetic acuity. Dig it! Again, this has been a slow drag with Bedlam from 2004's The Delivery Man. My golly, these lines are a barn burner. It's an absolute work of true genius. Paralleling the Nativity with a mental hospital challenges the listener to keep each reference straight. The words of each verse create an imagery cyclone that is easy to get swept up in. The structure is restrained, chaotic, and informational. As with everything, of course, there's always more to learn. Our Twitter friend Jake has given us more detail. Jerusalem, he said, is recognized in the same way as Flower of Scotland and Land of My Fathers. Now, I can only apologize for being an American so much, as I promise to explore these two songs further, but appreciate how he reels off these titles as if I already know them. As for Bedlam, he provides a bit of local color to the term.
Bedlam was London's asylum, but pretty much every local town had their own, and mine was called Roffey Park, so everyone that was a lunatic was called a Roffey.
There is so much more to this episode that I'd hoped to cover here, but have decided that the additional information is important enough to extend to a related supplemental episode, as it covers the scope of music and the role Elvis Costello's beautiful voice, gorgeous words, and lush instrumentation plays in the world of enjoyment and good memories. Please look for that episode soon. It will be entitled The Quickening Art. So, much thanks to Jake and Knotts for his British insight. You can find more information about our dear Jake in the show notes. And thank you very much for finding this appreciation, this exploration of linguistics, of language and obscure references, all framed by the peerless poetry of the modern-day master, Elvis Costello. Please check the show notes for links to the actual song, as well as links to references made in this episode. There's also a companion blog with a transcript and other useful references for your convenience. And as always, thank you for listening all the way to the very end. I'd love to hear from you. Please get in touch with comments, suggestions, or interpretations of your own. If you like this appreciation, and I hope you do, please subscribe, give us a good rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, and share with other language lovers. It's important to support independent podcasts. Thank you. So, until next time, adieu, my little ballyhoo. Slow drag with remedy.